What if your childhood hero father wasn't the man you thought he was, and the only way to find out the truth was to travel to the literal edge of the solar system? Picture this. You're told your father died a hero in space 20 years ago, only to discover he might still be alive and potentially threatening all human life in the solar system. That's exactly what happens to Roy McBride, a decorated astronaut who spent his entire career following in his legendary father's footsteps. Roy is the kind of guy who keeps his heart rate under 60 even when falling from space. He's calm, methodical, and completely emotionally detached, which makes him perfect for the most dangerous missions humanity can throw at him. But there's a reason for his ice-cold demeanor, and it all traces back to his father, Clifford McBride, who disappeared during the Neptune project 16 years earlier. The Neptune project was humanity's most ambitious attempt to search for extraterrestrial life, launched when Roy was just a kid. His father was the mission commander, a brilliant scientist and explorer who became a symbol of human achievement. And one day, all communication stopped. The official story was that the crew died in an accident, making Clifford a martyr for space exploration. Roy grew up idolizing his dead father, while struggling with abandonment issues that he buries so deep he barely acknowledges them. Fast forward to the present day, and strange power surges are wreaking havoc across Earth and the inner planets. These surges are knocking out power grids, causing spacecraft to malfunction, and generally threatening civilization as we know it. The military calls Roy in because they've traced the source of these surges to the Neptune area, and they have shocking news. His father might still be alive. Apparently, Clifford and his crew didn't die in an accident. Instead, they went rogue, continuing their search for alien life against direct orders. The military believes Clifford's experiments are causing the power surges, and they need Roy to travel to Mars and send a message that might convince his father to stop whatever he's doing. Roy accepts the mission, but he's not just following orders. This is his chance to finally learn the truth about the man who shaped his entire life through his absence. The journey to Mars is treacherous, taking Roy through a solar system that humanity has colonized but not quite tamed. His first stop is the Moon, which has been transformed into a tourist destination, complete with commercial flights and chain restaurants. It's a bizarre sight, seeing the sacred frontier of space exploration turned into just another place to grab a burger. But even this commercialized moon has its dangers. Roy's convoy gets attacked by pirates who scavenge lunar vehicles for parts and resources. It's a brutal reminder that even in humanity's greatest achievement, we've brought our worst instincts with us. The attack is vicious and sudden, with the pirates emerging from craters like space-age bandits. Roy's military training kicks in, but this isn't the sterile, controlled environment of a simulation. People die, and Roy gets his first taste of how chaotic and unpredictable this mission will become. After surviving the lunar ambush, Roy continues to Mars, humanity's newest frontier colony. Mars is still a work in progress, with underground cities and research facilities carved into the red planet's surface. Here, Roy meets Helen, a former colleague of his father's who worked on the original Neptune project. She reveals more disturbing details about Clifford's mission and his gradual descent into obsession. According to Helen, Clifford became increasingly unstable as the Neptune project progressed. His search for extraterrestrial life consumed him completely, and when Earth ordered the mission to return, he refused. Instead, he killed the crew members who wanted to come home and continued the mission with only those loyal to his vision. This revelation hits Roy like a physical blow. The father he idolized wasn't just absent. He was a murderer who prioritized his scientific obsession over human life, including the lives of his own crew. Roy records several messages to send to Neptune, trying to reach his father through personal appeals and childhood memories. But the responses he gets back are either silence or cryptic replies that don't really answer his questions. The military isn't satisfied with this approach, so they decide to escalate. They're planning to send a nuclear weapon to Neptune to destroy whatever Clifford is doing there, with or without his cooperation. Roy realizes that this mission was never really about communication. The military wanted him as a psychological weapon, someone whose voice might reach Clifford, but they always planned to solve the problem with violence. When Roy objects to the nuclear option, they remove him from the mission. But Roy isn't about to let this end without getting real answers about his father. In a desperate move, he infiltrates the nuclear mission as it launches from Mars. The sequence is intense, with Roy literally climbing aboard a rocket during launch, fighting his way through the spacecraft while it's accelerating toward Neptune. He manages to disable the nuclear weapon and take control of the ship, but not before the other crew members are killed in the struggle. Now Roy is alone on a months-long journey to Neptune, with nothing but his thoughts and his father's research files for company. The isolation is crushing, and we see Roy's psychological walls finally beginning to crumble. He's spent his entire life suppressing emotions, but trapped in a tin can hurtling through space. He can't avoid confronting his feelings about his father, his failed marriage, and his own emotional emptiness. This psychological journey is just as treacherous as the physical one. Roy discovers that he's been living his entire life as a shadow of his father, trying to be the perfect astronaut while never dealing with the trauma of abandonment. He realizes that his famous calm under pressure isn't strength. It's emotional numbness that has cost him every meaningful relationship in his life. When Roy finally reaches Neptune, he finds his father's ship hidden within the planet's rings. The vessel is massive and clearly cobbled together from multiple spacecraft, a testament to Clifford's resourcefulness and obsession. Roy boards the ship and finally comes face to face with the man who has haunted his entire life. Clifford is older, grayer, but still driven by the same manic energy that sent him to Neptune decades ago. The reunion is nothing like Roy imagined. Instead of joy or regret, Clifford greets his son with disappointment that Roy came to shut down his work. Clifford has been alone for years, continuing his search for extraterrestrial life with religious fervor. He's convinced that making contact with alien intelligence is humanity's most important goal, worth any sacrifice. Roy tries to convince his father to return to Earth with him, but Clifford refuses. He's not just committed to his mission, he's completely lost in it. The power surges that are threatening human civilization are side effects of his increasingly desperate experiments to boost his communication signals across the galaxy. Clifford doesn't care about the damage he's causing because he sees his work as transcending petty human concerns. The confrontation builds to a heartbreaking climax when Roy realizes that his father is never coming home. Clifford would rather die in service to his obsession than face the consequences of his choices. In the end, Clifford dies during an accident while they're trying to stabilize his ship, and Roy makes the long journey back to Earth alone, carrying his father's research and finally understanding the man who shaped his life through absence. The return trip is a mirror image of Roy's emotional journey outward. Where the trip to Neptune was about stripping away illusions and confronting painful truths, the journey home is about rebuilding himself with that knowledge. Roy finally allows himself to feel the full weight of his father's abandonment, his anger, his grief, and ultimately his acceptance. When Roy returns to Earth, he's fundamentally changed. Emotional walls that made him such an effective astronaut are gone, replaced by genuine human connection and vulnerability. He reconciles with his estranged wife, not because they're the same people who broke up, but because Roy has finally learned how to be emotionally present with another person. The movie ends with Roy's reflection on his journey, both literal and psychological. He's learned that the search for meaning doesn't require traveling to the edge of the solar system or making contact with alien civilizations. Sometimes the most profound discoveries happen when we finally stop running from ourselves and face the people we've become. What do you think hit harder, the space action or the emotional journey? Drop your thoughts below and let me know what other underrated sci-fi films I should break down next.